There is a statistic circulating around right now that 90% of South Dakota's LGBTQ community is diagnosed with either anxiety or depression. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. That makes me sad, and we should figure it out.
Yeah, I couldn't possibly imagine why 90% of South Dakota's LGBTQ community has depression or anxiety, although I'd imagine that South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem might have a pretty good idea, considering she herself was responsible for signing the first anti-trans sports law of 2022, SB 46. And by the way, it's not even just the legislation itself that impacts LGBTQ youth in this country. According to a new poll conducted by Morning Consult, 85% of transgender and non-binary youth and 2/3 of all LGBTQ youth say just the debates alone about state laws restricting the rights of trans people have negatively impacted their mental health. But anyway, I'm sure this all makes Governor Noem really sad. Now, while she pretends to be just so confounded as to this statistic, just remember that while Republicans like Noem pretend to be ignorant here, that they're actually responsible for fomenting the anti-LGBT sentiment and accompanying mental health consequences. In 2021, Republicans introduced a record-breaking 250 anti-LGBTQ bills, at least 17 of which were enacted into law. And that's to say nothing of the fact that it was also Republicans who blocked the Equality Act, which would add sexual orientation and gender identity to the protected classes of the Civil Rights Act alongside race, color, religion, and national origin. It was Republicans who fell over themselves passing anti-trans bathroom bills. It was Republicans who dug in their heels to block marriage equality bills. Over and over and over and over, we've watched as Republicans have waged all-out war on the LGBTQ community. Why? Because the Republicans need a boogeyman. This is a party that has no platform, and so because they can't tell you what they're for, they instead have to tell you what they're against. And they've landed on being anti-LGBTQ because they're an easy target to exploit in order to scare people. And this is nothing new. Conservatives have been fear-mongering about that community for as long as any of us have been alive. Republicans know that so long as they can divert your attention onto what should scare you, then they don't have to answer for the fact that what they do spend their time on office is woefully unpopular, like stripping women of their reproductive rights and pretending climate change isn't real and passing tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires. This is a distraction, and they're content to sacrifice the lives of vulnerable kids in doing so before then turning around when confronted with the fact that an astronomical number of LGBT Americans are contending with mental health crises and pretending that they couldn't possibly imagine how we all ended up here. So just remember that the Republican playbook is scapegoating innocent Americans in service of their own pursuit of power. Whether it's women seeking abortions, or people of color fighting for racial justice, or LGBTQ Americans who don't think they should be able to be fired from their jobs because of their sexual orientation, it is always the most vulnerable among us who Republicans will run roughshod over to raise themselves up. So Kristi Noem might stand there and say that this all makes her very sad, but we should probably figure it out, but I think we already did. To see more videos like this, click the subscribe button right here on this screen. And if you want to support my work, subscribe to my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen. I cover the most important stories each week, and my guest is always one of the top political figures, including Vice President Kamala Harris, Jen Psaki, Elizabeth Warren, Pete Buttigieg, Nancy Pelosi, Katie Porter, Cory Booker, and so many more. The podcast link is also right here on this screen, so give it a listen and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.